So the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 is one of our best of 2019. With me today is Sid Lal, the MD of Eicher Motors. Sid, you must be fed up of getting awards for this bike.
Never. That can never happen, yeah.
But are you surprised at the response that you've got?
I mean, I'm delighted.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely delighted. I can't say I'm surprised because it is truly a very special bike, the Interceptor.
Yeah.
I think we've put our heart, soul, energies for half a decade now behind this, and it's come out exactly as we wanted it to. So we're delighted about it for sure.
Yeah, I mean in India as well, but also in mature markets like the UK, you are getting rave reviews. Did you expect that going in?
It's all to a plan. I mean, the Interceptor and the Continental GT, but the new platform was made with an idea that it'll be Royal Enfield's first proper big global motorcycle. And even the specifications, if you look at it, it's at the higher end of Indian specifications, but obviously hits the spot. But it's also at the threshold level of European because it's extremely highway worthy. You can go 80 miles an hour at park throttle and you've still got a lot more to spare. So it was really our intention, and it's really panned out. In UK already we're the number 2 naked bike in the midweight category, which is brilliant. And we've got awards there, people are loving it. We've already crossed some very big other models of other brands which are European American models. So we're doing well. It's going well.
Yeah, and I mean what people love about it is that it goes to the heart of sort of pure motorcycling. So was that the intent?
Yeah, that's what we've been saying, and it has to come out in our motorcycles. And we've really tried to be extremely focused with this motorcycle. So excel at the essentials and cut out everything else, right? Just make sure that what we do really well. That's also part of the reason, for example, why the rolling chassis of the Continental GT and the Interceptor are the same. Because every single change needs a lot more time, attention, energy. So we said we'd rather put all of that in one platform. So everything is the same. The tires are the same, the suspension is the same. But the end result is that we've been able to make something tremendous, but I would say quite accessible as well, right? It's really quite accessible. So that was the idea.
And we have the Interceptor with us here today, but what about the Continental GT? How's that doing in terms of the mix?
So we always knew, based on our first Continental GT of modern Royal Enfield, that's a niche because it's got a different riding position, mostly because of that. Everyone loves a cafe racer look, but in the end, especially for a slightly older crowd like me, and on your daily ride, you don't be crouching down too much. That's just how, when you get a belly, that's what happens. So we always knew that the Interceptor is going to be the 80% of it, and the Continental is 20%, and that's approximately where it's panned out.
How challenging have the last few years for you been? Because there's been a new production facility on stream. You've got the technology center in the UK, a whole rollout of these models worldwide. How challenging has that been?
It's been a journey. I mean, if you look at the past, every point in the last 15 years when I look at it has been a different bottleneck. And that's how an organization should be. So if you start excelling at, for example, in 2010 we hit a ramp, and then the bottleneck was manufacturing. We weren't able to make enough. So for the next 5 years, we were working on our supply chain. We opened up our first modern plant, Oregadam, and we just worked that, and now we really know how to make motorcycles. It's taken us that time and effort, but we've got that underway. Then what we foresaw was the gap was going to be in our new product lineup. So even then, and I'm talking about maybe 6-8 years ago, we started doing a lot of work there. We opened our technology center. Today we have a UK technology center with 150 engineers. Our Chennai Tech Center has just opened up, and it's absolutely fabulous, and the kind of people we have there. And these are the kind of products that are coming out of there. So we now believe we really know how to make a new product. It's exciting. That's what we live for, and that's what we enjoy, right? To do different aspects of a motorcycle company. What else?
And looking at the Indian market, I mean, as you said, it's at the sort of higher end in the Indian market, but it's still selling really well. So what does that tell you about the market as a whole?
What it says is that you have to, in India, people are looking at something different and they're not after a low price point, they're after a really good value, right? That's what, and we all know that from every single automobile that all of you have tested. People are willing to pay if they see excellent value in a product, and the demands of Indian consumers have gone up tremendously as a threshold level on quality, fit finish, all of that. So that's all expected stuff, and our bikes are giving that. But really and what's happened is that if you look at the above 500cc category today, I don't have exact numbers, but I think we're in the order of 90% now. We control that market. We've been there for 6 months. And honestly, I don't care about market share. That's not what we follow. But the important thing is we've grown that market tenfold in the last 6 months, and people are now interested in a market which didn't exist. And that's what Royal Enfield does. When we came into the 350cc market and with our classic 10, 12 years ago, we created that market. Then other people sort of are now filtering in and trying to compete with us here, but we're taking the game to a different place.
So that was going to be my next question. There are a lot of folks now coming in to try and take that market away from you. What next from Royal Enfield?
So what next is now this absolute strength that we have in our product development and engineering is absolutely superlative, at par with anyone in the world, I'd say, in motorcycles. So really what you're going to see is, is stuff like this, the Interceptor, but this was really our first motorcycle with our all new product development process, and it's taken us a long time, because now what we've understood is that I don't mind if it takes another year to get in the market, and we take 4 years to make a ground up new product. That's how long it takes. I mean, maybe over time it'll become 3.5 years, but it does take that long. And when we're in no hurry, of course we're in a hurry, but we're not going to cut short any process. We're just going to do the millions of kilometers that we do in testing, validation, changes, updates, but get something absolutely perfect. And with stuff like this and our new models, they're all going to follow the same path and in fact improve process, right? Because every time we improve. So it's a totally new world of motorcycles you're going to see from Royal Enfield.
Will we see a Himalayan 650 as well?
I'd love one, but no, not right now. Nothing in the near future like that.
And there's so much talk now, even in the two-wheel space on the EV front. Are you guys looking at that at all? Do you have any thoughts on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all, the EV space for us is more, let's say, background work. It's not something that we've come out with. Just because, in fact, that's a policy, or that's a strategy we're following, not policy, is that we're not going to be the first mover in that market. We're going to see what happens, because there's so many variables. There's not just the product, there's the ecosystem, there's a charging infrastructure, there's the, for example, even battery degradation, which is happening, and cycle times and heat and cooling. So there's a huge amount of learning curve that everyone has to go through. We're doing that learning curve on our own. We've got product, we've got product strategy, we're doing a lot of fundamental work in understanding consumer and where consumers will go. We're doing a lot of work, we're growing our teams in EV, but you're not going to see something right here and now. You might see some concepts at some point, just because it's good to know where people say, oh wow, that's really cool, that's really interesting. So that's more to sense check. But it'll be a few years before we come out with something, but we're certainly on the ball and we're tracking what's going on.
And so for next year, what can we expect from Royal Enfield?
Well, the biggest thing, honestly, is BS6, right? Because we've had to, 3 years ago when it was announced, we had to recalibrate all of our product development priorities and change and shift our priorities in order to meet BS6. So that's really the biggest step. And of course, it's not just an emission change. We're using that as an opportunity to maybe even change a lot of our product or improve our product or do a lot of things. So, on a recently launched platform like this, you're going to see, an upgradation to BS6 of the same platform. But you might see a lot more changes in other. So that's absolute step number one that you're going to see. And that's already very interesting as far as we're concerned. Then all new platforms will be out later. That's a later step which you're going to take.
And market sentiment, do you see that picking up at some point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cycle. Things, things sort of go down, they come up again at some point. If you ask me to predict, I'm probably the worst type to predict when it's going to happen. So therefore, what we do at Royal Enfield and what we've done always very well, and what Vinod Dasri now as the new CEO is doing exceptionally, is to be very close to the market, to keep, just all the short-term areas, we just keep it very tight. So on working capital, on everything else, so our stock levels are low, so that's how we move, because we don't know where the market will go, but we can ramp up production as soon as we see a signal in the market. And if there's any problem, we don't have to produce more. So we just keep it very close at hand. And, for example, we've had an exceptional retail in October. Now, of course, it's Diwali and this and that. It's the highest ever month this October. But at least there's a bit of glimmer of hope right now coming in here.
Well, let's hold on to that glimmer of hope. Congratulations again on the success of the Interceptor.
Thanks a lot, Dhruv.
And thank you for joining.
Thank you.